Well, good morning. This is Plant Smart Living with Farmer Fred. Really glad you could join Bailey and I today. Anyhow, I wanted to share some tips and ideas how you can protect your vegetable plants from pests using row covers. So I'm really glad you could join us today. So what I'm going to be using as a row cover, it's a spun bonded polyester material. It's basically like a white fleece, and they also call this Agribond in the plant world, garden world. And you know, here at Plant Smart Living, you know, I just planted some cauliflower behind me, and you know, they get you see in your garden the white butterfly flying around, and you know, they're looking for plants to lay eggs on, and they really attack the cold crops, you know, the cold weather crops like your broccoli and your cauliflower, your cabbage, your kale. Last year I did have some curly leaf kale out in my garden, and you know, the aphids just attacked them, you know. And so, you know, the biggest pests I have here in our garden is the cabbage looper, you know, the caterpillar, the worm. Again, the white butterfly flies around, then it lays eggs under the leaves, which then develops into a caterpillar, and they just devastate your garden. And so I remember years ago I grew some broccoli here, and then I didn't have row covers on, and I don't like using pesticides here in the garden. And so, but anyhow, I ended up having worms all in my broccoli. And so now, having protected my broccoli with a row cover and the cauliflower that I'm going to be doing here, it's just going to keep all the pests out of your garden. You know, that's one of the most nightmares, or biggest nightmare in your garden, and which makes gardening annoying, is having pests, you know, to deal with. And so I always tell people it's well worth a little time and effort and cost up front to have row covers over your garden. They also call them like a low tunnel hoop house. The hoops are typically 4 feet high, 4 feet wide. Here, what I'm going to be doing today is using these PVC hoops. And what you can do is this is 1/2-inch conduit. You can buy at a home center like Lowe's or Home Depot. Ace Hardware stores have them. They're only a couple dollars a piece. They're 10-foot length. And what I did is I ended up cutting 8 inches off at each end. Last year I left them with the full 10-foot height length. They were a little too high, but I just cut off 8 inches. And they're only about 3 feet high then, which I think is a little bit better in relation to the width. And so what I also do is, in order to anchor these hoops in, is I use a piece of 1/2-inch rebar. Again, you can get that from a home center for a couple dollars. And this garden bed that I'm going to be installing the row cover over is 4 foot by 8 foot. And it really makes it nice if you have raised beds and you want to add these row covers to them. You know, although they'll work fine on a standard garden bed too. And then, so what I did is I anchored these 2-foot pieces of rebar in each corner, and then two in the middle. So I have 3 down each side. And then what I'm going to do is finish putting in these 2 other hoops here. And so I'm going to just take it and slide it down over the piece of rebar, and then bend the other piece in. Let's try that again. All right. And then just push them down in nice. And then I have one more to go here. So you can see it's basically a one-person job. It's really not difficult. Again, you just install your 2-foot pieces of rebar into the soil and then attach your 3 pieces of PVC. Again, I'm using 3 on this 8-foot bed here. So what I'm going to do next is go measure my row cover and install that. Now, this bed is 8 foot long, and so the poles are 3 feet above the soil. So I'm going to add an extra foot in length. And so I'm going to be cutting this probably about 16 feet long. And so I'm going to get the fleece, and then meet you back here. So what I did is I cut my row cover 16 feet long, and then I laid some brick out on the one end. It's a little windy here, so it always makes it a little bit more difficult installing this, but right now there's kind of a lull in the wind. So I'm going to just simply, after anchoring the one side, just drag it over the tops, and basically you're just putting a blanket over these. Try to find that leading edge. There it is. And I'm using bricks here to hold this down. You know, any type of weight will do. And then just simply curl up the edges. Now what I might have to do is tidy up this cloth a little bit more later on. And so I basically just take these edges and roll them right up. So it really makes it nice and easy. Grab another brick here and do this corner. And so I do have to tidy that cover up a little bit more, but you know, these row covers are great. It keeps all your garden pests off. It allows the water or the rain to penetrate through. And I also just take my garden hose and you can water right through these row covers, your plants. Unless you want to use some irrigation system, you know, that also works good, something like soaker hoses. But you know, these row covers, my plants thrive under these. And it keeps some of the heat of the sun off the plants, which right now I just planted these cauliflowers, and so they look a little stressed from all the sun. So this is going to give them a little bit of sun protection as well. And so let me encourage you to think about adding row covers to your vegetable garden, because it's going to make your garden season a lot more enjoyable. And so, you know, here in our Plant Smart Living gardens, I ended up using the compost, the leaf compost amended with topsoil, and that way it's a certified seed-free or weed-free. And so, you know, I virtually get hardly any weeds in my garden, and then add to that the row covers, and so I basically have a pest-free, weed-free garden, and it makes my time much more enjoyable out here in the garden. I don't have to be constantly pulling weeds and spraying chemicals on these plants. And so basically, again, it makes your gardening time out here a lot more enjoyable. So anyhow, I hope this gave you some tips and ideas on your own vegetable garden, and if you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them in the section below. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel, please do so you can receive future videos. So anyhow, I hope you have a wonderful day. So until next time, this is Plant Smart Living with Farmer Fred.